Hello, folks. I'm Nick Bernardo, your host of MyGovWatch Live, the B2G Roundtable. If you're east of the Rocky Mountains here in the U.S., good afternoon. Good morning to those out west, and hello to anyone joining us from the far corners of the earth or watching online in the future. Today is Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. This series is brought to you by MyGovWatch. With a curated white glove approach, MyGovWatch delivers leads in more than 200 industries at double the rate of free government tools and at a fraction of the cost of legacy websites. Big government contracts do not start with a solicitation, but all roads lead to one, and your budget for hearing about RFPs does not have to be thousands of dollars per year. Start your 14-day trial today. So, folks, thank you for your patience. I actually did something quite silly, which is why we're starting a couple minutes late here. I started the wrong session, and there I was for a minute or two, just waiting for people to join me. And then I realized, boy, there's a lot of people who signed up for this webinar. It really doesn't make sense that I'm the only one on it. So that's the bad news. Good news is it only took us a couple of minutes to get started. There seems to be a lot of interest in re-engaging with government opportunities as we move into the fall months here. I can tell that because the signups for this session are much larger, like 50% larger. So we should have a lot of interesting questions during this session. If we spoke in the last few days, then I think I can guarantee you that I'm going to get you on in the first 45 minutes. If I left you a voicemail and said we'd like you to participate, raise your hand. In any event, whether we spoke or not, if you plan on participating, please raise your hand and leave it raised, and we will come to you. And what we do is we ask you to share your audio. We prefer both audio and video, but we'll take your audio at a minimum, and that would be just fine. And so, Todd, if you are with us, and let's just see if you are. Not quite yet, but we'll give Todd a little bit more time. Oh, there's Todd. Okay, Todd, we're going to bring you on first, but just give me a minute. I just want to let people know who haven't been on the sessions with us before. I started doing, in the last 6 months or so, fun backgrounds. And so these are my two boys, and this photo is from 10 years ago. So I always try to have a theme for the webinar session, and the theme of this webinar session is camping. And the reason why it's camping, we do actually a neighborhood camping trip every October, and it's coming up. And this is a photo from 10 years ago. We've done it every October. So I may just ask you not only to introduce yourself, but ask you, are you a camper? Are you a happy camper? And if you go camping, where do you go? And do you have any good stories about it, right? Because I don't think that everyone wants to talk about government contracting for a solid 2 hours here. I'm just suspecting that, okay? So Todd, let me see if I can bring you on. And Christine, I see you've raised your hand. You're going to be second on the hit list. I can't wait to talk about your topic. Todd, I'm going to promote you to panelist as the next step. Hey, Todd, can you hear me?
How you doing, Nick?
Welcome to MyGovWatch Live. I'm going to ask you, this is the question I ask everyone. What do you do and where do you do it from?
So I'm the chief operating officer for a consulting company. I live in Akron, Ohio, so I do it from my home office. However, our company home office is in Roanoke, Virginia.
Okay. And are you a camper? And if so, are you a happy camper?
I am not a camper. When you grow up on a 100-acre farm like I do, you can camp pretty much anywhere you want in the yard, in the fields, and in the forest. And so if you call that camping, I guess, in theory, I am a camper and a happy camper at that.
It's funny, Todd. I know we spoke before this session, and I shared with you that my father is a military veteran. And whenever I was a kid, I would say, hey, Dad, you want to go camping with the Boy Scouts? And he would say, I did enough camping in Vietnam, son. So, Todd, what would you like to talk about today? Oh, Todd, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Nope. No, please go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to verify that our session's being recorded, and I just realized that it is being recorded.
Sure. So first off, I am now, as of this week, I am a client of MyGovWatch. I just signed up this week. And Now, the next step for me, at least, is trying to figure out how I can utilize this particular resource to assist, quite frankly, a friend of mine a little further. I have a friend of mine. His name is Travis Mills. Travis Mills was a sergeant in the military. When he was in Afghanistan, he lost both of his legs and both of his arms in combat and in battle.
Wow.
And he currently travels across the country doing speaking engagements throughout the country, and he has started several different small businesses. And we happen to just be friends with Travis, and so we're trying to help Travis stay at home more because he has kids similar in age, I believe, to yours, if that's not an old picture. And so just as a friend, we're trying to think through some different ways that we may be able to help him potentially win and find potential government contracts that his certification could be utilized for. He has I don't know the specifics of the certification, but I think you will, the disabled small business owner certification.
Yes.
And so knowing that, we're in the stage of, okay, great, what do we do with it now? How do
Okay.
we find more contracts? How do we potentially generate revenue for Travis in an effort to keep him at home versus him, in and out of hotels and airports, et cetera? You can imagine
Sure.
what that would be like for anybody. Try doing that without any arms and legs, and you can get a
Yeah,
better idea of what that might be like.
absolutely.
So any help you can provide, Nick, is greatly appreciated. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So, as you know, we're going to record this, or we are recording it. Travis, thank you for your service. My father is a combat disabled Vietnam veteran with his own issues at 77 years old. So, it's an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I would start with this question in response to your question. Do you plan on helping Travis as a consultant or as a business partner in an enterprise?
Today, as a consultant. In the future, the hope would be as a business partner as an enterprise.
Okay, because those are two very different paths. And all of the things that I might say about this have to do with the issue of control. As you might guess, even though the program for disabled vets is set up to help disabled veterans succeed through government contracting, there are a fair amount of bad actors out there who make it hard for people to do things. So there's a tremendous amount of scrutiny on disabled veteran enterprises. So as someone, if you are intending to be in business with someone like Travis, you want to make sure that Travis has what's called unconditional control of the business. And the way that that's defined federally is that it's not simply a matter of Travis owning at least 51% of the shares, whether it's a corporation or an LLC. But in addition to owning at least 51%, Travis needs to have control of the business, and they define it as unconditional control. And so what that means is anyone can own 49% of a business that's run by Travis, but Travis has to be in a position to make every business decision that the business needs to make. And no partner or combination of partners can have the ability to block any decision that Travis wants to make about the business. So that's sort of like the main idea when you're partnering with, and that's actually the same answer for a woman-owned business or a small disadvantaged business. It's the same concept for all three. If you are doing business with Travis or a company like that as a consultant, the rules change significantly because at that point you're a vendor, right? And you can provide that service either gratis if you're doing it to help Travis. If there's some monetization of that service, you still want to make sure that it's not, contingent upon certain things and that Travis still has full control of his business. But there's a lot you can do as a consultant and be paid for it, right? And you can do those things, and they're perfectly fine under the regulations of the disabled veteran-owned business program. So that's sort of just a starting point. Follow-up questions, and I'll just say this. What I've been starting to do on these sessions, Todd, is keeping people on the panel, and as they want to jump in with a follow-up question, they can do it. So do you have a follow-up question now?
I do not. I think I made, though, over the course of the call.
Okay. And by the way, jump on, jump off if you have to be busy. Turn off your camera whenever you like, or just stay with us. But if we are engaging with someone else, and this is really for everyone, if you're on as a panelist, just go on mute until you want to add something. So thank you for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring Christine on. So Christine, let's see if I can promote you. And do we have Christine?
Yes, hold on. Just getting, hold on. Trying to get my video on. Give me a second. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes. Hello,
Hi.
Christine. So
Hello.
first question, what do you do and where are you joining us from?
So I am our national sales executive for multitude of businesses. The primary focus is background screening, debt collection, and call center. It's a company called First Point based out of Greensboro, North Carolina. But I'm actually one of the very few remote employees. I'm in Southwest Florida, so just south of Tampa.
And are you a camper? And if so, are you a happy camper?
So in my younger years, I was a very happy camper. I used to camp living in Florida. I camped at the springs almost every summer. But as I got older, I realized I hated sleeping in a tent on the ground. So I got older, I bought a travel trailer that I absolutely love, but I'm spoiled and I bought it way too large. So it's difficult to travel with it often, but I do love it. And I like to camp in the Carolinas and the Smoky Mountains as much as I can.
Well, I went to the Smoky Mountains for the first time last year, and I can see why.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Well, thank you for joining. And so what questions do you have for us?
Yeah, I mean, so I've been in traditional sales for a little over 20 years now. And this is the first role that I've had where the primary part of our business comes from government contracts. So I am very accustomed to building proposals that are customized in text, customized in solutions that are unique in an RFP response to a question and answer. And it's heavily weighted on your security policies, your internal procedures, your operations, your financial security. And I have found when replying to government contracts, when you look at the evaluation from procurement, it's sometimes 40, 60% heavily weighted on pricing. And so it's discouraging, right? Our sales team will spend hours, days, if not weeks on a response. And how important is it that our actual text literature response is customized to the questions, or do we just need to concentrate only on pricing? And then when you do ask for feedback from procurement, you get an evaluation form that is number based with nothing else. You know, of 15 points you get 12. Great. What was that? What did I lose in those 3 points? You know,
Yeah.
there's no way, there's no opportunity for our team to learn how to grow, how to change. We don't understand where it comes from. It just seems like a very obscure evaluation.
Yes, it's definitely opaque. It's a little bit of a black box.
Yeah.
I will tell you that you're in an industry where we offer a premium product and that's not for all of our 204 industries, but in the debt collection space, we have a premium product where what we do is we get the results of every procurement through FOIA requests. Are you familiar with FOIA?
I am not.
So the Freedom of Information Act. And what we get is not only the evaluation that might have the numerical scores, but
Mhm.
oftentimes they'll give us a lot more than what they would release to a bidder because we're
Okay.
making them give us like detailed notes on what they thought of each bidder and a lot of other stuff, including the winning proposal, so you can see what the other guy said in their proposal. And knowing that you wanted to talk about pricing when you filled out the form, I did some homework in the debt collection space. And generally, I will say this, generally, I will agree with you that pricing is relatively more important in the government space than it is in the private space.
Yes.
We looked at the last 10 contract awards, and we looked at the percentage for the scoring related to pricing. So we added up the percentages and divided by 10. You want
Right.
to guess what that number was as far as the percentage of the total scoring that was involved in pricing?
I'm going to say a minimum of 50%.
It was 24%.
Oh,
Look,
wow.
and now just granted, we took a random sample of 10, meaning the last 10 things where we found out the
Okay.
results, where one was 50, one was 30, one was 40, added them up, divided by 10, and the number was 24. So I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying that you have to be very selective as far as what you're bidding on in the government space. And if it is over 30 or 40% related to pricing, you only want to bid on it if you have a really good reason to do so, if strategically you think you could be successful. And here's something else I would encourage you to think about. A lot of times the buyer, especially in your industry, doesn't understand the concept of ROI and their vendor. And I know you
Right.
understand that. So the more you put into it, and this is for people who don't really know the debt collection industry, but a lot of times the more these call centers and debt collection companies, the more effort and cost they put into it,
The more mutually beneficial we are.
yes,
Right.
the more dollars you can send back to the creditor. And the credit card companies understand that. The banks all get that. The government people may not understand that. So I would encourage you to consider offering pricing that might broach that topic. So you can give them the pricing exactly the way they ask for it, right? But you can also give them alternative pricing, and you can structure it any way you want. And it could be, for example, well, if we price it this way, the way you're asking us, this is how we would price it. However, if we return X dollars back to you over and above what you expected, we split the difference.
Yeah, like a performance-based bonus.
So
Right.
so a lot of times people make the mistake of assuming you can only propose pricing the way they've asked for it. At a minimum, you must propose pricing the way they've asked for it. However, they don't always ask for pricing in a specific way, as you know.
Right.
So I would be interested in showing you some of this stuff that we have in your industry, because I think you would be very interested in it in an offline conversation or another Zoom session that's one-on-one. Would you be interested in that?
Yeah, let's follow up and look at that. I mean,
Yeah.
any additional information we can get, obviously the better that we will become. It's just it becomes frustrating, right? Because we get these evaluations and I don't know how to tell our team what we need to fix because I'm just getting scores back.
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me ask this question. Would you like to stay on with us and maybe interact with some others as we go through things?
Sure.
Okay. So at this point, I know we have a lot of people on this session today, but I'm going to ask for people to raise their hands. Otherwise, I'm just going to go through my list of people who said they would be joining us. Liz, I see you're with us. Could you please raise your hand if you're ready to talk about your questions? Let's just see who else is here. And my apologies, I'm just looking through my list of who said they would be joining us. There's at least 2 phone numbers here where I don't have a name. Let's just see here. Ernie, I know that you called me back before this session. Well, would you be interested in asking a question and participating? If so, you could just hit the button to raise your hand and I'll bring you on. Oh, there's Ernie. Thank you, Ernie. We're going to bring you on. Hello, Ernie. Can you hear us? You're on mute.
There we go.
There we go, Ernie. Welcome to MyGovWatch Live. What do you do and where are you joining us from?
What do I do? I'm in support of sales, and I'm in Westminster, Maryland.
Okay.
Did I see correctly? You're from Ambler, Pennsylvania?
No, I have a phone number, a Philly phone number, so to speak, that sometimes tracks to Ambler. So it says to Ambler when people see my number, but I've never lived in Ambler. I am an old Philly guy, and I do live in New Jersey now, but please don't hold that against me.
Okay, I am not a camper, but I am a happy camper. Let's leave it at that.
Well, it's not for everyone, but there's something about fall camping that I've always liked. And my days of sleeping on the ground are over. It's always like a 4-inch tall air mattress at this point, and that's just fine by me. So what's on your mind, Ernie?
Okay, I'm basically semi-retired and trying to keep busy. I have a relative who has a company, USL Financials, and he said, I got the perfect idea. You can help me out a couple of days a week. Go on to this new item I purchased, Deltec and GovWin, and review the leads and bids that you get, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm learning from scratch. And one of the things that came up with gentleman puts the deals together or makes the proposals is, excuse me, oftentimes we don't have all the necessary software to make a bid. And he suggested to me that, for example, I think it was one of the colleges I had found for him, and in particular, they wanted SIS, Student Information Systems, software rather. And he said, you know, if you have the time, why don't you look around and see if there's companies out there that would partner with us. Now, we're a small outfit. What advice can you give to me to, you know, in this example, search out SISs, or other areas he was looking for was tax billing, code enforcement, business and occupancy tax, those kind of things. That's where we're lacking. We don't have the manpower to, I guess, do all the programming necessary for that stuff. But
yeah, absolutely. Great question. So what you're really talking about is teaming, where you have capabilities, but you may need complementary capabilities.
correct.
Also subcontracting. And do you envision that you would be a prime or a sub?
That we would be a prime.
Okay, but you're looking for companies that have capabilities to support you.
For example, we use PDS. It's a payroll company that handles up to about 3,500 people. And more common is 500, 700, 800 people. For companies that we're looking at have, you know, 5,000, 8,000, what companies would you direct me to?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are lots of different ways to identify these kinds of partners. One good way to do it is after the fact, when bids are awarded, and we were talking with Christine earlier about the Freedom of Information Act. Are you familiar with that?
Not so much. I'm 2 months into this business. So.
Yeah. So I don't know if Deltec does this, but we certainly do it. At the contract level, in any industry, someone can log onto our site, pick a contract, and say, go get me the results. And that starts us down the path of an administrative process where we force the buyer to give us information that we're asking for about the procurement, such as a copy of the contract, a list of interested parties. So anybody that showed an interest in the bid, who attended a pre-bid conference or a phone call or a Zoom, or who bid on the contract, we're typically getting that information, as well as a copy of the winning proposal. Now, you can do that yourself, but they don't like fulfilling these requests. And for companies that are using our site for leads, we do it for a nominal upcharge so that you're anonymous, because they don't like that you're doing it, right? So those documents give you names and phone numbers of people that are in an industry. So if you see bids on our site for exactly the kinds of partners you're looking for, you can use the open records process to identify who is bidding on those contracts. That would be a really good way to do that. And that's after a bid's awarded. During the bid process, you can also use our site as a jumping off point to see who is interested in an open solicitation, because we're showing you wherever the buyer is publishing the list of interested parties, we're giving you access to that. Pardon me. So you can use our site to identify current solicitations where the company's bidding would be potential partners for you. And you can see that information through our portal and identify partners that way. Then also through active solicitations, if you show an interest in a procurement, often you may be copied on an email that might have 15 other companies copied, or you might be invited to a pre-bid Zoom where everybody's name is on the screen. And so those are some ways that I would recommend for meeting those parties. Another way would be using sam.gov. That's a tool federally where you can look up companies by NAICS code or by type of specialty. And you can often get lists of businesses, small businesses that are able to provide capabilities that you're looking for. So I'm just going to stop there and see if you have a follow-up.
My follow-up is, how do I get the recording of this?
Well, yeah. And I said
I was taking notes, but you're going too fast. So I figured,
no,
I'll
it's
just
fine.
back
It's
and listen.
fine. Yeah, it's fine. So we're about 27 minutes into this. So on YouTube, in about 2 or 3 days, this will be out there, and you would just fast forward to 25 minutes in and see this part of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so we have, and I'm just going to look and see. Okay, so someone is asking, can we open the chat? So if someone does have answers or different softwares they have found that may benefit other companies, can drop them. Courtney, I would like to ask you to clarify that. You can either send a chat to me or raise your hand and I'll bring you on. I'm just not quite following. I'm just not quite following the question. So Ernie, additional questions?
Not really at this time, though, Nick. I appreciate it.
Okay, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just see. And do you want to stay on with us and maybe you'll think of something and jump back in?
Sounds fine.
Yeah, okay. Okay, just stay with us. So folks, it always amazes me. Sometimes we'll have, 25 people show up and all 25 people will show up. Other times like today, we'll have 75 people sign up and we might have 15 or 20 people show up. But I had a bunch of people who told me they would absolutely make it and they have not made it. So I had a bunch of people queued up to ask questions. Let's just see if John is still with us. John is not. So I'm looking for folks who are interested in asking a question at this point, because at least 5 or 6 people who told me they would join us have not done so. And that is rather unprecedented. So Courtney, are you interested in jumping on? And if so, please raise your hand. Okay, we have a hand raised and we're going to bring Courtney on. So Ernie, stay with us.
Mm-hmm.
Courtney, welcome to MyGovWatch Live. Can you hear us? And we just need you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome to MyGovWatch Live. Courtney, I normally would ask the question that I always ask, but if I'm not mistaken, aren't you a user of our platform?
I am.
Thank you for being here, and please don't be shocked, because whenever somebody signs up for our webinars, I try to eyeball like who is using our site. I did notice your name. Thank you for using our platform.
Absolutely.
And where are you joining us? And for the benefit of folks who don't know you, what do you do and where are you joining us from?
Okay, so my name's Courtney. I do wraps direct. So we do vehicle wraps, wall wraps, floors, anything that has a flat surface that can be used for advertising. I'm your person. We're currently in Jacksonville, Florida, but we do have nationwide partners across the United States. So we work heavily with subcontractors, prime accounts, and things like that. And I'm originally from Ohio, so repping my Ohio State. And I'm Army. I'm still currently in. I did 8 years active, 2 years reserves right now. So finishing up, trying to get that 20 in. I don't know if I have a question right now, but I did ask about the chat. If we can open that up so that people can drop helpful links in there, that would be awesome.
Yeah, let me see if I know how to do that. I don't know if there's anything preventing it. Are you saying you're not able to do that now?
Let me see if it'll open.
So when I click on chat,
Only if you're a host or a panelist, you can see it. So I don't know if there's anybody here that is just a user trying to get their bearings on all of this, because there is a lot that you guys are covering. So if you guys have helpful links that you guys could drop in there that we can go back and refer to, that would be super awesome. Especially if they're how-tos. That would be great, at least for me.
Okay, and my apologies. I've been doing these sessions for a couple of years, and we have had people chat and just use chat before. I'm struggling to find a setting that says
I don't think you can. It's a part of the initial setup when you set up the webinar, if you enable chat or not.
Okay, I just found something that said attendees can chat with, and I changed it from no one to everyone. So I wonder if you have a different experience now.
Yeah,
there we go.
There you go. So now everybody can chat in there. Awesome.
All right. So Courtney, by the way, I remember our first interaction now, and I remember your business. So thank you for jumping on with us. So what interest do you have in software, knowing that your business is in vehicle graphics? Like, was there anything specific about that you want to talk about?
No, it was just interesting. Ernie's question. I'm sure that there's other people who have come into that same thing and they may have found a workaround that, you know, we can benefit from, or maybe you guys can incorporate into your program. So that's what I was getting at. Like, if somebody has like tips and tricks that they found that they're willing to share, that would be great, especially when it comes to MyGovWatch. Because I know that you and we got a chance to walk through the website and how it works and everything like that. But if somebody else has like another tip or trick about your website that can help other people narrow down to better search options,
Yeah.
that would be super awesome. And then, like I said, if somebody has like another software that goes with yours, that they can drop in there and build on that, that would be great.
And so what kinds of complementary software would you be looking for example?
So I think Ernie mentioned the SIS one, or something compatible to it. I know that we do a lot of Excel, PDFs, Word documents, things like that. So maybe just having something that can help incorporate other people's.
Yeah, sure. So one thing that we're looking at as a company, and I don't mind sharing this on something that's going to be on YouTube because everyone is talking about this now, is we are looking at product add-ons around artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
And my background, and Christine, this didn't come up. I know you're still listening. My background is proposal development. That's how I came into the business. And so we have a really good understanding organizationally about what's important in developing proposals to government agencies in particular. So over the next couple of years, what you're going to see out of us is some product launches around shortening the time to complete the RFP process. And not just from a writing standpoint, from a project management standpoint, because a lot of people may not understand that artificial intelligence is not solely about writing content or creating content. There's a whole other part of the bid process around project management and team management within it. And maybe that's what you're alluding to. Are you seeing some of that as you develop bids?
Yeah, here and there.
Okay. And to the extent that you're willing to share, how has it been going bidding on different contracts?
I think that since I do have a military background, I'm in military intel, so I'm kind of used to reading some of this verbiage over and over again. So far it's been an easier transition, especially using your website versus like DemandStar or BidNet or whatever else is out there. I want to say that yours is all encompassing, which makes my job so much easier here. So I appreciate that fact.
Music to my ears. And have there been any curveballs or surprises? Because there's always something in a bid process, if you look at enough of them, where you think, boy, I've never seen anything like that before. Are you seeing anything unusual or anything interesting in some of the bids you've looked at?
Not really. Most of the ones that I'm looking at are relatively the exact same thing over and over again. I have noticed that some people are more, they want specific brands, and they don't allow you to wiggle versus, and like, so like 3M is really popular. Everybody knows who 3M is. They're a big company. But there's actually another company that is actually better. And a lot of these people don't understand that this is a better product. It lasts longer. And so they don't give you the chance to sit there and like, hey, I could offer you this one at a cheaper price than what you're wanting, and it will last longer, be better for you, and it's easier to work with. So I think that's the most struggling part that I work with, is trying to get these people to understand that 3M is not all it's cracked up to be.
Yeah, and what you're really alluding to also is what we like to call getting ahead of the sale.
Mm-hmm.
And in your business, you're responding to really specific specs, and they're saying, this is exactly what we want. This is how big it's going to be. And you're giving a number, right? But there's still an opportunity. So even if you don't like that they've spec'd something out and maybe you don't win, at least now you know who the contacts are, and say you can have offline conversations with them outside of the bid process and do some of the educational things that would help them change their policies in those areas for future bids. Have you been doing any of that?
Yeah, actually, we're working with Clearwater for all of their park signage here in Florida. And I had to go through the whole process and just letting them know, like, hey, 3M actually isn't the best thing to be outside. Like, you need to look at this brand because it offers better longevity for being outside in natural weather, especially here in Florida where it is, I mean, today's 90 degrees outside and it's hot as heck. It's humid. 3M doesn't like that. So here's another option that you guys should consider. And so Clearwater, thankfully, their point of contact has been awesome to work with. They're allowing us to use a better brand. But I've had some in the past. It's like, nah, it's got to be this, or I got to cancel this bid and redo it from the start. And then I can't guarantee you guys are going to win it again. I've had that happen.
Yeah.
So, or if something is discontinued, because a lot of these people are very specific, if that color, for instance, isn't made anymore. So 3M, Avery Dennison, whoever, they're like, you know what, this color didn't sell very often. We're going to do away with it. The bid specifies it has to be that color. Now
Right.
what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, because they're not real. Once they publish the specifications for the bid, they can't really change them. Well, they can change them, but it creates possible legal problems for them. The best way is to get ahead of it and try to get them to change it in the first place. However, I will say this. You are able to protest specifications if it unduly limits competition in a way that isn't helpful to the government agency. So do you suspect that they are citing CM, for example? When they do that, do you suspect it's because 3M is lobbying them or because they just don't know any better?
I think it's just because they don't know any better. Like, I feel like in the military, we use 3M for pretty much anything from your ear protection to whatever. It's just a known brand in the military. So a lot of people are like, oh, if it's not 3M, it's garbage.
Yeah.
So like I've had to tell people, and like I've talked to a few people and they're like, okay, I see what you're saying. You guys are the experts. So we understand where you're coming from. However, if I switch this now, I've got to cancel this bid and start over.
Yeah.
So,
Well, there's a concept in procurement, and you probably have seen this, and this is really for the benefit of anyone on the session who hasn't seen it. The concept of sole source awards. Are you familiar with those? Okay. So this is a term of art in federal contracting, but they also have it at the state and local level. So if a procurement officer needs to buy something, and if there's only one product that does what they need, they can go around the bid process. And if there are policies and procedures, and in federal cases, it would be the procurement rules and laws, the regulations around procurement. If there's only one product or service provider who does that or can do that, they can just say they have to write up a justification on why they're doing it. And if no one challenges that, they can do it. So I would encourage you to, just try to generally educate your audience on why other products are not necessarily, why they're at least as good as 3M. And I think if you take a long view of that and consistently put things out to people, especially people you're identifying on our site who buy what you sell, it's not going to move the needle in a month or even possibly even in 6 months, but over a long period of time, you should be able to chip away at that. And I would also encourage you that you can protest these specifications. If you think there's a buyer who is saying it must be 3M over and over again, you have nothing to lose at that point because they are just so focused on 3M. Protest the specification, and you might need an attorney to help you with that, and we know a few. But you can say, okay, well, I have nothing to lose. I'm not going to do any business with these people unless I get them to change their thinking. I protest this specification. Here's why. What you really want is any product that does X, Y, and Z, not this brand name. And that will open up competition, and that's good for you, even if you don't award the contract to me. So would you consider doing something like that?
Yeah, I would. I mean, that would only benefit me in the long run because it benefits the client as well too, because 3M is so expensive. And other products are a little bit cheaper, but they last longer. They have better image quality, especially when you're printing on it. So I mean, yes, definitely, I would definitely consider it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to stop there and just say, folks, we've had a lot of people who said they would join us who just couldn't make it for whatever reason. So I'm actively looking for people who would like to participate in the conversation. Hopefully Ernie and Courtney will have additional things we can talk about here. Looks like Jenna would like to jump on as well as James. So Courtney and Ernie, please stay with us. We'll have like a real roundtable like we used to have at conferences, and let's just have a bunch of people on. And Jenna, I'm going to bring you on. And let's see if I can do that.
Hello, let me see if... All right, can you all see me and hear me all right?
Yes, Jenna, welcome to MyGovWatch Live. What do you do and where are you joining us from?
Hello, I am an associate at Spill Center, which is based out of Hudson, Massachusetts. I'm joining from right outside of Boston from fortunately from my home right now. And what Spill Center does is it is an emergency response technology company, and it provides environmental incident management services.
Okay, and I feel like we've had some interaction before, but before we get back to that, are you a camper? And if so, are you a happy camper?
I would say I'm more of a day hiker than an overnight camper. So,
and
where
is the hiking near you?
There's a lot of good hiking in New England. So really anywhere north is always good hiking for here.
Well,
are you a happy hiker?
I am a happy hiker. Yes.
Happy hiker. I like it. I like it. Well, I'll take 7 miles on a golf course any day of the week. But I'll also take long walks in the woods with my kids, as you can see the boys in the background. My daughter's going to see this video at some point. I just had to grab an image for this session. So she was born probably a few months before this photo took place, which is why she missed this camping trip. But I'm still probably going to be ticked off that she didn't make the background image. So Jenna, what questions do you have for us today?
Yeah, so a little bit different than what we've talked about so far, but I'm wondering if we can talk a little bit about accounting department organization. So like as I'm coming from, a well-organized but small firm, and we're looking at government contracts, how should our accounting department be organized? And I guess kind of the follow-up to that is, is there a standard that exists that we should make adjustments to meet a current standard, or is like general compliance and security more of a higher priority in terms of bids?
Are you referring to the mechanism of billing the government customer?
Yes.
Okay. So I learned a long time ago to not pretend that I knew everything about everything. So I will tell you that the bookends of my expertise start with pre-marketing government folks so that they're aware of your product, right, before there's a solicitation, through to solicitation and post-solicitation. If there's some problem, we have just a little bit of background noise. So anyone who's not talking, just please go on mute and then just turn it back off when you're ready to add something. So unfortunately, my expertise does not extend to the logistics of being paid by the government once you have a contract. That's the bad news. The good news is, if we can trade some emails, I can go into my Rolodex and get you talking to somebody who can make some recommendations, if that would help. And please jump off mute if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I think this is kind of a starting point of just trying to get a little bit more information and ask more questions. So that would be
what challenges are you having? Because again, this will be recorded. So if you can explain the challenges you're having, I can just share the link and say, watch minute, 46.
Sure. So no challenges quite yet. I think more of trying to prematurely make sure we have everything set up before like moving forward with bids. So kind of trying to be prepared in the event of future bids right now.
I can tell you that although people tend to wait longer to get paid from government clients, they tend to get paid at a higher rate, than private sector clients. So even federally, there's a Prompt Payment Act for small business, assuming you're a small business, and I don't know that you are. So that, that's on the plus side. So Christine, you've joined us. Would you like to jump back in?
I was gonna say, one of the things that I've learned too that we've done, and maybe this would be helpful for Jenna, we incentivize some of our government contracts that they get a percentage off basically if they pay us in a net term. So let's say standard net terms are 45 days. I've seen them as long as 90 days. But we'll tell them if they pay within 15 to 20 days that we will provide a 1 to 2% discount rate. And most of them take it and they pay us on time.
You know, Christine, you actually bring something up from my past here. I would like to give credit to someone who was the first person I worked for involving government contracting, a gentleman by the name of Mark Fishman in the mid 1990s. And he had me write on a bid once, and I was like 22 years old helping put RFP responses together. And he said, "Oh, here's what I want you to put on the pricing. We're going to put in 22%, and it'll say, you know, a 0.5% net 10." And I had no idea what he was even doing. And he had me do that several times. And I finally said, "Mr. Fishman, why are we doing that?" And this is still true, by the way. And this goes back to your question about pricing and how important pricing is, Christine. If there is a tie bid and they both are at 22% and you happen to offer a contingency fee pricing in your business, and one bid says, you know, 0.5% net 10, guess who wins? You do. So, yeah, you just reminded me of something from 1996 there. So thank you for that. All right. So please, Christine, a follow up to that?
No, it was also a tactic that someone had taught me as well in the very early days of my career when I was responding to RFPs.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, because oftentimes in these RFPs, they're very strict. You must respond this way. But if you have alternative ways to price things, feel free to submit that as an addendum. And so, you know, in the very beginnings, when in my early 20s, the same thing. I didn't know. Yeah. And I saw those net 10, those net 15s. And I was like, I don't understand what this means. I thought a price is a price is a price. But when it comes to getting paid on time, it's a huge advantage.
So,
and procurement loves it because they're showing an overall savings on top of what the PO number originally was cut for.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's just anything they can do to drive the pricing down. It looks good for them. Funny story. You just also reminded me of something else that happened the same year, and I've told this story a few times, but it's just a super funny story. I had to send like 10 proposals to the state of California, and this is back in the day when the proposals were this thick.
And you had to mail them.
Well, yeah, and I had to be at the FedEx location by like 6:15, otherwise it wasn't going to make it there. And that day I had pasta in marinara for lunch in Tupperware. And because I had to run out of the building, I had the 10 proposals in the box. The box wasn't sealed. I threw my Tupperware in the box. And then I thought I took it out of the box, drove over to the FedEx, and then shipped it. When I got home, I couldn't find my Tupperware.
Oh no.
So I spent the night thinking I just shipped a dirty Tupperware container to the state of California, and I'm going to be fired. And the next morning, I stopped short at a red light on the way to work, and it slid out from under my front seat.
Oh, thank goodness.
All right. So, James, we're going to bring you on. We have James Misner with us. Let's promote James, and please, Christine, stay with us. And Jenna and Ernie, just jump back in whenever you're ready. And folks, if you're jumping in and out of paying attention, anyone who raises their hand will be brought on. So please just raise your hand and we'll come to you in turn. So James, welcome to MyGovWatch Live. Do we have your audio and video or just your audio?
There we go.
Welcome to MyGovWatch Live, James. What do you do and where are you joining us from?
Well, as you can see, I work for a transportation and relocation company called ACE Relocation Systems. Okay. So we transport, relocate companies is the specifics, and my title is National Sales for Government and Large Institutions.
Okay, and that title tells me that you already have government clients. Is that true?
Correct. We are part of GSA. We have GSA biddings.
Contract. And
correct.
Before we go further, are you a camper and are you a happy camper?
As a kid, my mom and dad had a motorhome. Then when I had kids, we didn't have a motorhome. So we went tent camping, and I just relocated from San Diego out to the East Texas area. And to move out here, I bought a motorhome to finish my transport out. So now I'm going to be a new motorhome camping person. So I enjoy motorhome camping. So not tent camping anymore. My back can't handle that. So
Well, I'm right there with you with the motorhomes. When they closed the schools in 2020, um, my oldest in the photo behind me, I guess he was probably 10 at that point. My little guy was 8. My daughter was 6. I rented the 40-foot bus style RV and we drove to Seattle and back between Mother's Day and Father's Day during COVID because we were totally self-contained. We didn't have to interact with anyone. And it was one of the greatest things I've ever done. So I know what it's like to operate an RV, and it's not for everyone, is it?
no. My mom and dad had a 28-foot. I bought a 32-foot one. We didn't have the push pop outs like I do now, so it makes the motorhome a lot more spacious type of thing.
Yeah.
But I took 3.5 days to go from San Diego to Texas, and that was the first trip I ever took in it. I just bought it from somebody then. So I'm looking forward to finding more area around here in the East Texas area to go visit and do. But yeah, I'm kind of looking for it.
There's never a shortage of destinations. So James, what would you like to talk about today?
So my want that I'm looking for out of this is how do I go about finding government contracts for my specific industry? Because if I want to just do a Google search, I'm going to have to go to 100, 200 websites because I go to state, I go to federal, I go to county, I go to city, I go to municipalities. I've got school districts, I've got universities, I've got all of this myriad of spots that I need to find and or clients. And I mean, if I do a search 150 sites a day, I'm never going to get through it.
Yeah.
And it's just too much
Yeah.
of searching without it being funneled.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that feels like a softball on a tee because this webinar series is promotional for MyGovWatch.com. And that's exactly the business problem that we solve. We are not unique. There are probably 15 websites that do what we do. But we feel like we're perfectly positioned in the following way. So we're trying to provide the right leads at a price point that anyone can afford. So there are competitors we have that are charging, $10,000 or $15,000 for the data that we can deliver to people for about $1,000 a year nationally, or $600 to $700 if it's just a handful of states. So have you started a trial on our website yet?
No, I have not yet. That I was waiting for this seminar to kind of make sure that yes, it fits.
Yeah.
And make sure
funny.
that all of that. So,
and James, I want to just thank you for this because one of the reasons we came up with the webinar series is because we could provide this consulting and not charge for it about some of these other issues. But we realize when people come to our website, not all of them are going to immediately create an account. So we give them another thing to do, and that is sign up for the webinar. So I appreciate you doing that. And I'll just tell you that participating in the webinar, when you go to the website, it says it's a 14-day trial out of the box. Anyone who participates, we make it a 30-day trial. So if you sign up after this event, I'll see your sign up. It would normally charge the card on the 15th day. I'll set that to October 18th if you're willing to give it a try. And I'll take personal responsibility for your trial experience. And the fact that you have government clients tells me that we probably have what you're looking for. The only time we ever lose a user is if the government doesn't buy what they sell, or if they haven't engaged with us on making sure that they're getting visibility to what they need to see in our system. If we have the bids, it's only a matter of getting the right bids in front of people. So obviously, I'm happy to talk about our product. We tend to try to avoid that, and I'm happy to help you one-on-one with a trial. But do you have any questions around government contracting in general, or maybe a couple of quick things about the product?
Well, I mean, I'm fairly familiar with doing government contracts for GSAs and the municipalities. I mean, I've won a number of ones already, so I've got that notch already underneath my belt. It's the hunting and going after. That's the part that's been more of a challenge. Instead of me, I don't need to take 2 days of 8 hours trying to go hunt and do in specific areas, and I know that I'm still missing things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I need to. I mean, I know what our codes are to put in for our services, but it's also Okay, where are they? Who are they? What's all the other stuff? I mean, I go on to GSA's site. I go on to sam.gov. All of those type of things. But universities, yeah, I'm going to have to join a whole bunch of university procurements, please.
Yeah.
And I mean, San Diego area, that's Planet Bids. Okay. I mean, I don't know if those funnel into you or at least the links into them. It's that type of thing of just where I can know that, hey, go to this area and go hunt
Yeah.
in there. Or here's
Yeah.
the quicker links, and not have to keep just filtering through. The other part is we're not a large business. I'm sorry, we're a large business, so I don't have small business set-asides. So I can't do those type of bids. Is there a way of filtering those out? How so? I mean, that's the type of thing that I don't want to have to be wasting time looking at things that doesn't fit, that doesn't fit, that doesn't fit.
Yeah, yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge, and you said a mouthful, and I like my mind is racing on all the things that I could say in response. One thing I'll say is that our site overlays all of them, right? So we don't care that Planet Bids is out there. We don't care that BidNet is out there. It's all public information. We have access to it, and if we push you over to BidNet site, you may need to get the documents there. We push you over to Planet Bids, you may need. So sometimes our users have frustration because they have to create logins, but it's only in the beginning. Right. So if you need to create a login for the New York City portal, yes, you have to do that. That's their requirement. It's not ours.
Right.
But you only have to do it once. In terms of identifying things that have relevancy, you mentioned NAICS codes. Are you doing NAICS code searches today?
I have started to do that. I hadn't done it in the past, but I've started to. And I also started to do the NIGP, I think it is,
Okay.
codes as well.
You're aware of your
So-
numbers in those systems?
Yes. Yeah, I
Okay.
know all of those. So I definitely know all of that. I mean, and definitely areas where we can definitely find and do. And when I go into creating the profiles, I absolutely make sure that we're putting in those codes into, so we get the focused bids coming to me.
Yeah, we actually did some data analysis around this last year, and we found that federally, close to 40% of federal leads that come through the SAM website have a misassigned NAICS code or an inadequate NAICS code. And the reason is they're only allowed to put one NAICS code on an opportunity. And I remember doing a webinar early this year where I showed a federal title, and it had to do with repossessing boats and then moving them throughout the United States and then storing them. And because it had to do with marinas, they put a NAICS code for marinas on the RFP. But a big part of the work was moving the boat from one part of the country to another, but they can only put one NAICS code on it. So one thing our system does is it uses some natural language processing to figure out like who else needs to see something, even if they get the NAICS code wrong. So that's another value add with SamGov.
Okay.
Hey, James, let me jump in here really quick. I will say I was under the same overwhelming that you were, and between DemandStar, BidNet, and all the other ones, I will say this one is a lot easy. This MyGovWatch is a lot easier to filter. Plus, the emails that they send you every day that applies to your specific what you're looking for has made it 10 times easier. And then when you go under and you're looking for like the lead source, by clicking that and taking it, yes, you may have to sign up for whatever county you're doing. I have a Mac, so I just save all my passwords so I don't have to worry about all of it. I've got an Excel sheet that has everything as well, because I've got accounts all over the United States now. But I will say, compared to the other websites that I've looked at and did my research on, this one has been the best one for me personally, just because of the filtering that it allows me to do.
Courtney, thank you so much. I surely do appreciate that.
I have to
And Nick's
second
now going to
that.
give you 10% off, 10% off your bill.
What he said.
Yeah. But I'm gonna second that, because the other thing that's nice is you can bookmark, because there's so many that are out there. And for someone who's I'm dealing with 4 different service industries and 4 different codings that are uniquely separate.
Right.
I can bookmark and subscribe to certain RFP opportunities, and it makes it easier for me to review them, because you'll look through them and you'll go, okay, I don't want to respond to this, or I want to respond to this. And I can go back and say, well, go to my bookmarks. Now I have time to really focus on this. And it makes it easier. Whereas the other ones, it's not it's not as easy.
It's not as user-friendly as
No.
MyGovWatch seems to be, and that's what
Agree.
I like the most about it, is it is user-friendly. It's very easy to understand the website and work your way through it. And when you're reading, 100, 150 bids, every 2 days or something like that, just to be able to save them, be like, all right, this is a good one, I want to come back to it. But the timeline, I got a month. Let me work on this other one that's 2 days.
Right.
So I do like that aspect of this website versus the other ones, and that it gives you the lead source, because whenever you're on like Demand Star or something like that, sometimes it doesn't give you the source to go and actually submit the right bid to the right people, or you're Googling them like crazy trying to find out where the heck to go. So that is one thing that is very beneficial from MyGovWatch, and I've only been using it for like a month and a half or 2 months. So not an expert yet, but it's very user friendly for me.
Well, Courtney, thank you so much. And I can do better than that. Look for a payment holiday on your credit card next month.
Thanks, Nick.
No, thank you. So, Melinda, you've joined us. And by the way, James, stay with us because you may have, some follow-up questions. But Melinda, you had something very nice that you put in the chat. And for folks that don't maybe know this, Melinda has had some interaction with us in the past. Melinda, thank you for joining us again. For those who don't know, what do you do and where are you joining us from?
I'm joining you guys from Orlando, Florida. And what I do is I help people build businesses that they can one day sell, if not sell at all. And one of the ways that I do that is to help them add a stream of revenue with government contracts. So, and then as far as being a tent person, like camping outside.
Oh, camping, yes, I forgot. Are you a happy camper?
I was waiting for that question. No, so I really did love camping as a child. Just with family, and I was in Girl Scouts, so we did camping. But as an adult, no, I do enjoy my Posturepedic bed and everything along with that. But I am always going to be a happy camper, just always in grateful mode.
And where, when you were doing more camping, where did you like to go?
So there's this park in South Florida where I was born and raised, and it's in Hollywood. I can't remember the name of it, but I can actually see it. It's a huge park with a water park inside of it. It was just amazing. We would camp when it was a little cooler in South Florida.
Well, you remind me of my favorite thing about camping. Have you ever with the Girl Scouts maybe do scary stories around the fire?
Yes, and our scary stories weren't that scary.
Okay.
It was just like
okay.
It was silly, scary stories with the girls, but yeah.
Okay. Well, the reason why I bring it up is like with this camping trip that we're going to take in like 3 weeks, my background is writing, like creative writing, and that's how I got into bid writing. Is people wouldn't know this about me, but like I'm somebody who could just pump it out, right? And I like thinking of new stories and telling the kids. And every year they ask me to tell the same stories, and these are like original stories that I've created. And I remember one year, I didn't realize it. There was a 2-year-old little guy right next to me, one of the neighbor's kids, and I was telling this really scary story that I won't get into. And I just turned around and looked at him. I didn't realize he was there. He was crying.
Oh no.
And another year we had a neighbor's daughter say that she wanted to go home. So like I have to remember, but these kids are getting older now. It's still a lot of fun.
The exposure, well, I feel like there's less to be afraid of these days.
Yes. There's so many other things that are so worse than what we could come up with. But so what's on your mind today, Melinda?
So actually I had a question about FAR.
Oh, okay.
Specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as a small business owner, and I'm sure like everybody here, we see this influx of, technology, cybersecurity, supply chain security within the government contracts. And so my question is, what are some proactive steps contractors can take to ensure they meet evolving standards like the CMMC while minimizing disruption in their operations?
Evolving standards in the FAR?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we're sort of getting into an area that is more legal in nature.
Okay.
And so we have, and just, I'm sorry, I feel like I should know this already, Melinda, but are you an attorney?
I am not. I
You're
am
not.
not. I'm
Okay,
no,
okay.
I help people submit government
Okay.
contracts and teach them that.
And you
Yeah.
may have been an attorney, but people have asked me in the past, am I an attorney? I'm also not an attorney. But we have an attorney partner firm, and it's a marketing partnership. They refer us, we refer them. It's Co-Prince McCall Patroff, and they're out of Kansas. And we've done webinars, and look for Nicole Patroff. And if you look at our YouTube page, you'll see she's been on them probably 3 or 4 times. She's probably going to be on November's edition, or possibly even next month's. And we could do a couple of different things. You could join us next month, and I could tell her to prep for that. Or we could just trade some emails, and I could get her to send you an email about that. But highly recommend it. Their entire focus is federal regulations around procurement.
Yeah, that would be great. Emails would be great. I'm trying to help a client out with that specific question. And we're going through an RFP right now, and thinking about how to handle that legally. So
Yeah.
it might
So
just be something that we need to.
if you start an email thread with me, I will then copy Nicole, and they're always looking for other referral sources too. And because you're not an attorney yourself, they should help you, and they probably will, because you may need them for other things in the future.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
Thank
good firm and great to work with. So we're only at about 70 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes. I don't see any additional questions. Let's just see, we have a chat here. We have somebody under the name of Jenna, but I don't think you're Jenna.
No, well, I'm Jenna too. My colleague Jenna Frizzell actually joined and has been listening, but
I was going to say, will
Moses.
the real Jenna Frizzell please stand
please
up?
stand up, exactly. She's right here. She's lurking in the chat.
There we go. All right. So, what is your real name, Jenna?
My real name is Ethan Moses. Her real name is in fact Jenna Frizzell.
I believe that part, and I believe the Ethan part. So, Ethan, welcome to MyGovWatch Live. We already know what you do. Are you a happy camper?
Oh boy. If I'm being honest, I like a lot of the stuff that's camping adjacent. I love to kayak, I love fishing, I love going on like leisurely walks, not hikes, but put me in a tent and I'm not at my best. So
Okay. You didn't say drinking beer, so I guess you're a real outdoor enthusiast.
oh, that's
Well, what's on your mind, Ethan?
So I hopefully the real Jenna alluded to this at some point, but so we're an emergency response technology company. We're small, we have a lot of flexibility, which means we can take on a lot of different kinds of work, right? And so one of our strategies lately has been to pursue more contracts that involve building emergency response software for companies like our clients, or for groups like our clients. Those would be trucking companies, large private fleets, LTL, stuff like that. And we run into this problem where we'll find a contract, and we think we can build a solution that fits the needs of that contract, but we struggle to communicate it, because when they say, well, what do you do? And we sort of have a sense of what needs to be done, but we also have kind of our way of doing it. How do you communicate? What's the best way to communicate that you can maybe accommodate a certain type of ask in a contract with new development, without necessarily giving the impression that like you're completely new to this, because we rarely are.
Right. And so let me answer your question with a question, just to clarify. Are your solutions primarily pre-built solutions, or are they always custom solutions?
So that's the thing. So we have, I would say we have sort of established frameworks. We have a lot, we'll, for example, operate a call center. We have technology that we like to reuse across different clients. But the goal here would be to adapt that existing technology to like a novel solution.
Okay, so you're trying to, and I understand the needle you're trying to thread.
Yeah.
The needle you're trying to thread is to not make it seem like they're hiring you for custom programming. You're just doing an enhancement to existing software.
Yeah. How do we kind of communicate our flexibility while still signaling to them that, we have a structured approach, we have ideas, we can can fit the needs of the ask.
Okay. So just for talking, is this challenge typically, like, what percentage of the solution is already built when this challenge comes up versus what incremental development needs to happen, like as a percentage?
That's a good question. I would say most of the time if we're thinking in terms of like net new development, we might have, I would say 80% is done, 20% is adjustments.
Okay. So I would think that do you agree with me that there's a difference between saying we will do something and we are already doing something?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay. So a bid comes out on October 1st and it says we need the software to do X, and your software doesn't do X. On October 2nd, you have a meeting as a team and you say, well, we're going to develop this new feature and it's on the development radar, right? I would be looking to make minor wording tweaks to your proposal saying this is a feature that's already in development.
Okay.
Just make sure it's true when you say it.
Oh, of course.
And even if it's 1% in development, at least it's in development. And by the way, it would be nice to say something like, well, it's already on our development radar. We're starting to develop it as of this, as of the last month, we're starting to develop it. And we're targeting a deployment of October 28th.
Okay.
And then, but let me ask you this question. If somebody wants X, would you then go build it even if you didn't win because somebody else is going to want it anyway?
Well, so I think under those are simpler cases for us, because if we think that it's just a good service, we think it's a good service, it would enhance the platform and we're going to be able to leverage it like all over the place, then it's like, then we're pretty happy to take the plunge, right? But
Yeah.
It can be a little trickier when you're thinking about allocating dev resources to a project that you're going to be waiting a few months to hear back from. You're not sure if you're going to get it, stuff like that. Here's
Yeah.
I actually have I don't want to take too much of your time, but the use case I'm talking about here is pretty straightforward. We'll because of what we do. So part of what we do is we do incident management services for things like spills or other environmental stuff, claims management, and we leverage a response of this massive response contractor network in order to do that. We have all these relationships with them, and we want to sort of kind of use them to sort of get the best possible response wherever the incident happens. So it's better than having a contract with, say, one company, because one office might not be as effective as another office. Sometimes we'll look at these contracts and they'll say, hey, we need someone to build an emergency response system to handle incidents that happen like at 10 facilities, right, across a region. And the contract is clearly written for one of these companies that, rather than operating off of a referral model, has the folks in hazmat, has the cleanup crews, has the trucks, stuff like that, right? And so we can do that work. We know we would do that work, and we think we can do it better than if you just contracted with one person. But we struggle to communicate that because we would have to say, because the way the contract, the way the ask is structured, it doesn't really, we're kind of a square peg to the round hole, even though we know that we can actually, the hole's big enough that we can fit it in anyway, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a fair amount of nuance here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's important at that point that you have someone who's working on your proposal. And are either of you writing the proposal?
Yeah, we both are on the team that writes the proposal.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, describing that in words is not always easy. And I would almost have to have a real example in order to think about how I would do that. And by the way, if you guys were to sign up for next month's webinar, we could always, and I always encourage people to do this, let's trade some emails about a specific solicitation, right? And we don't have to say who it's for, and let's just talk about what would you say and how would you say it? And if given some lead time, I'd be happy to comment on that. Melinda, do you have some thoughts to add there?
Yeah, I was agreeing with you every step of the way. It's tailoring the message specifically to highlight what you will have, um, given that potential timeline of October 28th or whatever that deadline would be that the software would be available for them, given their need and demand for this specific project, it could be accelerated given that program. So like almost incentivizing them behind it to help participate in building a solution for them, but obviously getting exactly what they want from your software is what I was kind of
Yeah, that's
understanding.
really helpful. I really like this open format, by the way. I love being able to hear those perspectives. Yeah, I took that was really great advice, guys. So yeah, Jenna, why don't we we'll reach out to Nick at some point. I don't want to take up anyone else's time.
Well, by the way, you don't have to jump off because we typically set aside 90 minutes for this. We have at least another 12 to 15 minutes. So you could, and by the way, I'm looking to see if anybody else has their hand raised. Yeah, I mean, we could just talk about your issues for the rest of this session if you like, or if you feel like organically you're out of questions, we could leave it until next month.
Well, it would really be digging more into providing you with real example and discussing sort of that example. Right?
It's really an interesting scenario, though, especially the previous part of our conversation around like how do you communicate that you have the ability to do something, and I think just like minimizing and even quantifying. Like, I wonder if this, and we're just talking out loud, right?
Yep.
Quantifying, okay, possible client, we want to quantify that we're able to meet your targeted needs 97% and give them a number and say, okay, and the development lift that it would take to meet 100% of your needs, quantify that not only in terms of person hours and time. So we meet 90%, 97% of the requirement today, and we need 6 weeks and 200 hours of programming time to meet it 100%. So that might be a way to take it to do it as well.
Yeah, that's great you bring that up. So sometimes we feel restricted actually by the way the contract itself is presented on the portals. And so, you're with, at we've worked with MyGovWatch before. We think it's great. But we one of the things we struggle with is that, again, if the contract is structured in such a way that we don't necessarily have the space to express ourselves that way, would you suggest maybe adding an addendum to our submission or something equivalent to a cover letter?
I wonder, Linda, I'm curious if you agree with this as well. I think less is more. My reaction is less is more here because I feel like the more you explain, the more defensive it sounds.
Right.
Do you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. And it depends on the stage of that opportunity. So if it's a quals package versus a proposal, I'm going to go into more detail in a proposal and just tailor it specifically to how there's an advantage and incentive for this solution. And I'd also like to highlight that, because I'm seeing a lot of our clients who are dealing with this when it comes to software and new solutions, that it's a lot of education to the government on how they can benefit from a solution because they're confused as just like everybody else. Okay. So the incentive for them is, can we participate in the building of this? How can this be an opportunity for us to accelerate and build something with you? And you're already on track to do that, but we can go faster. And it incentivizes them specifically on participating versus you having to come out of pocket for something that you may or may not win. But this is something that helps them communicate back to you whether or not they're interested in taking it to 100% with you. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I like that a lot. Now, so if I understood what you said correctly, Nick, even if we sort of you don't necessarily recommend adding too much detail on top of what's already being asked for in the contract simply because it can come across as defensive.
Defensive. Yeah, I think less is more. When you can't currently meet a requirement, I think the more you talk about it, the worse it is for you.
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, great. Now, is it, here's my last question is, if for whatever reason we felt like, we've actually run into this with some of, in the private sector with some like RFPs. If the contract is formatted, if the opportunity is formatted in such a way that we feel like, not necessarily to communicate our capabilities, but rather to provide necessary information about us and what we can offer. If we feel like the opportunity as written doesn't leave room for that, is it still okay to add maybe an addendum to an application, or are those typically like not, are those typically ignored?
Yeah, I'm not even sure I would do it as an addendum,
Okay,
because I think doing it as an addendum calls more attention to it than you want,
okay.
right? So, let me ask you, this is more of a question. If you
Sure.
bid on 10 RFPs, how many do you have this issue come up within?
So we have a pretty good hit rate with private sector RFPs, but we had one recently where this was the problem. So it was I will obviously will never name names, but it was a private fleet who needed response services. They were broadly distributed, so they were sort of a perfect client for us. They hauled hazmat, they hauled all kinds of things. But the way the contract was written, it kind of assumed that we were going to here's the thing. So with a referral model, because we sort of do a bid process with the response contractors, we get the benefits of sort of competition without actually having to, bring absolutely everyone into the fold. And so what that means is it often results in really, really competitive cleanup, costs for cleaning up that spill in this case. But the contract was written as though we had written down like a price sheet, so it was like, okay, how much are you going to charge if we, need to give a guy a spectrometer or whatever, right? And it was tough because we knew this company could benefit from working with us. They were a model prospect, but the application was structured in such a way because it required a fixed price that our only option was either, survey our network, which can work as a fine solution, or find some way to communicate to them, look, we don't have a rate sheet specifically for this, but one of the benefits of working with us is that we can beat the prices on most rate sheets you'll be given.
What about this term? Has this term come up? Cost plus pricing?
Yeah, we've encountered that. That's something that we have tried, but sometimes there isn't even room for something like that.
So, and it's interesting to me that you're aware of that idea, but so that's not appropriate there, or that wouldn't work there?
It didn't work there. It wouldn't work in that instance because there wasn't, again, it was how the application was, it was literally structured in such a way that if we did cost plus pricing, right? Because we had to submit a long list we basically had to submit a rate sheet. Imagine a long menu of items, and for every single item you have cost plus pricing. The optics for that are questionable, and so we had to make a decision. Do we take that risk? Do we put that down and we try to represent ourselves as well as possible, but not really provide the kind of information that they might want to make their decision? Or do we try to find some other way to communicate how our pricing structure works?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating challenge, and I understand the challenge because you're managing sub-resources, and it's very common in government contracting, but I think there's a wrinkle that's unique to your business. I would say I would love to engage, like if you have an RFP that comes up at any point and we engage via email, I would love to come on here and talk about it. And we don't have to say who the end audience is, right? We can just talk about what the requirements are and ideas that we have around that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that sort of thing. I think Jenna would like that too. Well, Jenna 1 would like that too. Cool. Well, That's great, guys. Thank you so much for your help. So I think we're going to follow up, and we'll yeah. Jenna, do you have anything to add from that?
Just to double check, you said that the recording of this would be made available. You said like 2 to 3 days.
It's typically Friday,
Okay.
but you know, don't yell at me too loudly if it's Monday.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So, folks, I want to thank you. That will do it for today's edition of MyGovWatch Live. And remember, if you're not already a subscriber, start your free 14-day trial at MyGovWatch today. If you want to win more government contracts for less, you'll be glad you did. Thanks for joining, and Melinda will be in touch.
All right. Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much, guys.
Thanks so much.
Bye.